every day. The Roman eyes aimed your way, exposing their tech knacks, it's their turn to pay. It's time we stand together, taking your kids is no joke. I don't know who ever spoke, saying you can have our kids, but they are fired. We have rights that we stand on, time for CPS to be gone. Their services are no longer wanted. There is no reason for our kids to be taunted. Stay away, EPS. You have no authority. You hear is waxing war on me. Leave now before things get bad. My Constitution came from a revolution, defending the family as the foundation of our freedom. It gives us the way to beat them, so be aware, don't tread on me. I am the Punisher and follow my warning. I have the posse with me, so get to conforming. I'm all systems go, and we are ready for blast off. Hiding behind the night, giving EPS a hell of a fight. He's not backing down while they try and steal his freedom. So challenge his will and feel his wrath. Our bird is watching every move, making sure Pierce doesn't screw the pooch. He knows the laws and enforces them. CPS, watch out, get off the porch, you can't come in. Danielle is fired up, looking for action. She hates CPS with a great passion. She'll fight all night if it needs be. Fighting APS is where she should be. Gunner is fierce with his knowledge, pretty good for a guy with no college. He was quiet until they ruffled his feathers. Now he's pissed and won't stop until it's over. We all have come together to fight this enemy. Together we will win for you and me. Our kids will come home, let the truth be known. EPS, you never had authority. This is more than important to me. Return our kids home. We don't deserve to be alone. We are all EPS punishers throughout the world. Our voices heard. We stand with a message. CPS needs to learn. Fuck around and find out. Running for CPS like a lion on the prowl. Take back our kids, bring them home now. Constitution, strong blood won't lie. No more corruption, let freedom fly. Loud and on fire, won't back down. Keeping the faith here in this town. Apple pie dreams under a southern sky. American man with a fierce battle cry. Stand up, fight for justice, we demand. Gunning for CPS off our land. For family truth with a strong hand. Time to rise, take a stand. Corruption falls like shattered glass. Together we stay, no more broken past. Faith and hope, never too far. Return our kids, make them the stars. Fierce in heart and steady in soul. Families united make the broken whole. Justice for all, America strong. Sing this anthem loud, sing our song. Stand up, fight for justice, we demand. Gunning for CPS off our land. For family truth with a strong hand. Time to rise, take a stand. Corruption falls like shattered glass. Together we stay, no more broken past. Faith and hope, never too far. Return our kids, make them the stars. Corruption falls like shattered glass. Together we stay, no more broken past. Faith and hope, never too far. Return our kids, make them the stars. Stand up, fight for justice, we demand. Gunning for CPS off our land. For family truth with a strong hand. Time to rise, take a stand. Take a stand. You can wipe off that grin. I know where you've been. It's all been a pack of lies. I can feel it coming in the air.
Good evening. This is Gunning for CPS. I'm your host, Gunner, this evening. I'd like to welcome you to our edition of Gunning for CPS. And tonight we're going to focus on some of the mental health issues as we do every other week. First, we're going to take, and we've got one of our returning guests with us this evening to where we're going to talk about a couple of those things. But one thing I want to take and be able to share with you guys is let's watch this video real quick. And I want you to show that this is something, this fight with CPS has been going on for a long time. And if you think anybody's safe, you're not, because this video I'm about to show you, this woman is a U.S. senator that they went after. Let's watch this video.
This child trafficking thing is real. It has always existed.
Well, my name is Nancy Schaefer. And I'm from the state of Georgia. In the United States. And thank you for your gracious invitation. I will share with you on the unlimited power of Child Protective Services. I served in the Georgia State Senate, and after 4 years of viewing the ruthless and unsparing actions of Child Protective Services, I wrote a scathing report entitled "The Corrupt Business of Child Protective Services." The report cost me my Senate seat.
Former State Senator Nancy Schaefer and her husband Bruce were found dead today at their Havisham County home.
Fox 5's Justin Gray is here now with more. Justin.
Speak up for those who can't speak for themselves, and for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. Thank you.
Guys, that was a sitting senator that CPS went after once she exposed what was happening in Georgia. The amount of things that she seen shocked her to her very existence. And this is why part of our show we dedicate to mental health, because this is psychological warfare that's being done on you. Guys, I want you to help me welcome once again my wife, Sharon, who has a degree in psychology and early childhood development, has worked as a EMT, has worked with special needs children, has several experiences, as well as actively raising several children actually that are on the scale of autism, that they don't want to educate you about, that they've thrown everybody together on. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody.
So tonight we're gonna just take and cover a few things on some things are very similar that we've heard or probably seen with people saying things about narcissists. What are some of the things CPS? I mean, we'll use terms like gaslighting. Give us some examples of gaslighting stuff that you experienced firsthand, as well as maybe some other stories that has been shared within your network of group of gaslighting principles that CPS does.
Sure, I can try. Let's see. So gaslighting is the we use that term usually in reference to narcissists and the way that they approach situations. When you go to confront them, they will come back at you and turn it on you and make you think that it's your fault and that you're crazy. And actually, this can happen in relationships. CPS is very good at this, though. They will have you second guessing everything, absolutely everything that you know. They will have you second guessing your relationships with your spouse, with your children. They will have you second guessing how you are as a parent. They're very good at these tactics, and it can vary from social worker to social worker. I had a very for lack of a better term, I had a very gifted social worker. He was very good at twisting absolutely everything I said back on me and making me feel a little bit confused and a little bit off balance. It takes a lot of willpower and a lot of thought to work against that. I'm trying to think of specific examples. It's a little bit harder. It's been a minute, but
So gaslighting would be something like, if you don't cooperate, we're going to call in the police. Gaslighting, in other words,
that's more of a
those kind
straight
of
up
things.
threats. That's more of a control tactic. Gaslighting would be more like what they did to me, as far as saying, why would you want to remain married to somebody who's going to hurt your kids, even though my kids had never been harmed? Or why would you not want to take your kids to you want to take your kids to therapy because it's going to be what's best for them, and it's a psychological, it's like a psyops tactic. Like, they make you think in reverse almost. It's really hard to explain unless you've been through it, but most of you probably know what I'm talking about.
Now, within some of these gaslighting tactics, you'll also notice that they're fishing for information. One
Yes.
thing I know that was going through there is, what, you don't have somebody you go to church with, you can't give your kids to. That's telling them whether or not, and that's going into your First Amendment, right there. What's it matter what I worship or what church I go to or what this? Why aren't you asking about family first? Why is it giving away the kids to something that's not familiar or anybody that you can't? Because understanding, and that's one of the other things that we're going to share a little bit tonight. You guys are.
Gaslighting specifically is more subtle. You're not going to see it coming the same way as you're going to see a full-on threat or coercion. Yes, you're right.
Coercion, yes.
So it's gaslighting is more subtle. You don't always realize it's happening as it's happening.
So you have to be attentively listening for little things or little, little push. We call them, I guess you could say, little encouragements or little pushes is what I guess you could say gaslighting. In other words, hey, I'm going to kind of push you in that direction by saying or suggesting a few of these particular things. It's a soft push. If you go to the extreme of that, I think the point we were making with Goddess Kratos was saying, yes, to the extreme of that is coercion. Yes. The extreme of gaslighting is coercion. Absolutely.
No, coercion
because they
is
don't care.
Art. Coercion is a little bit different. So gaslighting is more of a subtle psychological tactic to make you, what they said, question your reality. It makes you think that you're the crazy one, basically.
Right.
Whereas coercion is straight up just trying to get you to do what they want.
Let me rephrase what I said. It's not so much that, it's a psychological step by step. If in the beginning you're going to start with some gaslighting, once they have the manipulation and control of a sense of authority, then it's you're going to do as you're told. In other words, it's progressive. It can go to the extreme of that.
It can be. It again varies from caseworker to caseworker and how they operate, I think. Because the two caseworkers that I had experience with, they both operated very differently. So, and it also varies based on what your situation is as well. So, but these are tactics that they definitely use. Gaslighting is one of them. Coercion is another. Outright threats is another. Yeah.
Now, when we say words like threats, what we're talking about is something that is actually classified in the legal system as felonies. Those are considered felonies. That's called threat or intimidation to do something. That's unconstitutional, especially by a government representative and or actor, which is what the Constitution is there for, to protect us from this. They have a certain set of rules that they're not, let's put it this way, not following, and everybody's trapped in these state courts and they don't know what to do because they're not changing jurisdiction, because you do have constitutional rights issues, but your state courts have no jurisdiction on constitutional issues. So you're fighting in the wrong court. And I understand, that we've been through that. We were complaining from the very beginning of constitutional issues, but nobody said, hey, you need to change jurisdictions because it is, and the court has no authority. But the judges were supposed to point that out too. So you're getting browbeat by CPS and then a legal system that's corrupt. And when I say corrupt, judges and magistrates, you better listen to me. Your oath means you run to the aid of the Constitution. You're supposed to know that inside and out and how that takes and relates to real world things or cases you hear. When you fail to do that, you have violated your oath right away. And now you have committed an act of war against the Constitution and against the people. But this is the constant thing you're being berated, because a lot of people are going through of saying, what about my constitutional rights through most of their cases? And how do you, because we had to wrap our heads around it. And what is we come to the thing of saying, why aren't they following the Constitution? That's what it came down to every step of the way. Where's the constitutional rights? And then coming to find out the states have given the rights. They're actually interfering with your constitutionally elected sheriff, because every state is going to these sheriffs and saying, when it comes to children, you don't investigate, CPS does. This is in all 50 states. Do you see the psychological warfare? Now imagine the difference of somebody that has no training in constitutional anything about your rights, and all they care about is kids and how to get a hold of kids, and it's only horror stories. Now you've been through a lot of the training CPS workers have gone through, and yes,
Yes,
some of the titles have changed, but what are some of those trainings when you deal with that you had to witness? I mean, there was something called likeness into dark and some other things that were mentioned.
Darkness to Light is basically their curriculum for how to spot sexual abuse in children and how to identify concerns and then how to go about reporting it and stuff. And so here's where the line is very difficult, especially for those of us who have been trained this way, and a lot of medical personnel, psychologists, therapists, people like that have all been kind of trained this way. There are specific signs that may or may not show up in a child, and every child is different. Every person is different, so the signs that they may exhibit may be different. The problem that becomes is when you become so caught up in it, it's like everything becomes a sign. Like you worry about every child that comes through your door. You just do, especially if you care about kids and you want to see them safe and you want to see them loved and taken care of. Like any little thing can all of a sudden become a problem, and you worry about every child. And that can cause some problems, especially with mandated reporters, because they don't want to miss one. Like, as a mandated reporter, you don't want to let a kid slip through your fingers that may need help. And I can understand that. But on the flip side of that, there are things that could be shown that aren't. And the problem that you run into is when you report these things and there is an investigation, they're not investigating properly or thoroughly. And that's where the problem comes in. So, like, the trainings and stuff are helpful to understand the possibilities, but
Right.
once you start reporting things, you're putting it in somebody else's hands, and now you're expecting them to do all of the work to investigate and get to the bottom of it, and they don't.
Well,
So
one thing that let's talk about one thing real quick too is there's a constitutional issue about this with mandated reporting. Because here's the thing, if you're reporting a crime, great. But as far as the government telling you how to come in and raise your children or do this or do that, they've got no right. And that's where they're coming in of saying, you're a bad parent. You're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. You're not doing. I'm an American citizen. I have a right to raise my children under the Constitution without government interference, however I choose, including what they believe, our right to a religion, our freedom of speech. All these come into play. So now why are we into a social accounting system that if you don't behave a certain way according to somebody else's opinion, we now report it? Now, if it's criminal, now don't get me wrong, if it's criminal, that's where your duly elected sheriff's supposed to come in because it's a crime and they're to investigate crimes. But if there's no crime, why are they involved?
right.
Constitutionally speaking.
And that's why I like to talk about freedom with boundaries, because we all have the freedom to raise our children, but we still have boundaries around how we raise our children based off of our laws, the Constitution.
Absolutely.
Like, it's my right to raise my children the way I want to, but not to cause them harm. And this is where I think things get really mixed up, because these caseworkers are not trained that way. They are not trained to respect boundaries. They are not trained to respect rights. They are not trained to, they're not trained to listen to the parents. Whoever said that earlier in the comments, you're right.
Oh, I think we lost Sharon with a connectivity issue. Um, oh, she's come back here. Um, Guys, we're going to talk about, like I said, the let's bring her back out here. The
Sorry.
Constitution. That's okay. Um, I think the big issue is the constitutionality of we're supposed to leave each other alone. Where does anybody have the right to come in and do this? It goes to the very foundation of our constitutional rights and our values. Um, I don't have the right to tell somebody if I disagree with the way you homeschool your kids. So long as you meet the guidelines, you're to be left alone under the law. You don't have to go to public school. They say, well, you got to be enrolled. Now, if you're fully qualified to do it and you have the opportunity to do it, the other thing that they're cheating you on in public education is your family's culture, your family's history. How much of a psychological impact does that make? I mean, you and I have had that discussion of one of the things we miss out on is the fact we don't have our children spend enough time with the older generation. So they miss the stories to pass on. And, what's the psychological impact of that from your perspective? The psychological perspective, what is the damage it does for not having grandparents in your life or anything or interacting with the older generation because they are being isolated? This is a psychological warfare tactic. They're separating us from our grandparents for many reasons and great grandparents. So
You lose connection with your family, you lose connection with your family history, you lose connection with your past in a lot of ways, your ancestors in a way. My family was a little bit different. My grandparents were always around, so
but we've seen the systematic display of the destruction. Some people call it a nuclear family. You've seen family just in general, whatever that means. Not just a nuclear family, but a family, a loving household, come under attack. I've seen them take away from homeschooled, very strict Christian families and throw them right into the middle of things that are just the opposite of their belief with, we'll say, a LGBTQ or whatever you want to call it household. How is that not a violation of the Constitution? Put
it
them
is.
with
But
similar stuff.
are targets, and we all know it. So, I mean, we've always been targets because we're one of the last groups standing up for not being socialists. So,
Yeah. Now, guys, don't forget to hit our like and follow and share our show. And if you miss anything on our show, it does go through some quick things with our good head up manager of the produced show here to make sure that it's reposted so you can go back and watch. So if you guys have missed anything, you can always go back a couple of days later, or we try to get it out the same night to publish it so you guys can go back and watch the video if you've missed something, especially when it comes to case law or certain information. Um, Now, I promised you guys a huge announcement when it comes to CPS of what was going on. We actually have two major announcements we need to deal with. The first one is that it has come to information, and for all of you advocates out there, parents' right advocates, it has come to our attention that CPS workers are using an AI program to forge text messages and documents off your cell phone, not screenshots, but the way it transfers. This is happening in several states and in several cases, and has, this new AI program, they are just turning this in. But when they go back and people have actually saved this to their phone and go, that isn't what it says. That's why you guys got to save that information. Don't delete it. Hold on to it. Back it up. Take pictures of it. Take videos of it. Store it somewhere safe. Why? Because they can get into your stuff. They absolutely can. There's ways they're tracking people on social media, all sorts of different platforms, and they are pulling all this. But here's the issue: AI cannot violate copyrights. That's where the AI program gets you. So if they pull something from here to here, it's required to put a little note in there saying this was put in on this date and this. And we have caught several cases of evidence. I've seen this has happened and is happening. And once we told them with our IT experts how to find this and where to look for it and how to decipher this AI, caught them every time. Fabricated evidence. And I'm talking some really nasty stuff, including the fact of cutting and pasting. That's right, child pornography into fake text. That's disgusting. They are framing people.
Well,
100%.
they just found a new way to do it.
Well, 100%. Now, I've got something extra special for you guys, and then we'll pick this up here. I'm going to share this with you. You guys are going to love this. Now, you're asking, what are you looking at? This is current case law stating you have constitutional parental rights guaranteed by the Constitution. That's right, people. Current case law stating it. For the cause of civil rights activation, this is settled. It's closed. You can use this right here. You can look right here. You can look at the website here. You can go here, type in this stuff here. You can get all the documents you need to print off. But the summarization of this is that parents have a constitutional right guaranteed by the Constitution for parents and children. There it is, guys. The debate is set with current federal case law. It's all right there. And you can go back and watch it. It's there for the information. Guys, it's coming down. We're not kidding. And we're taking it one step at a time. And if you think our group or this group through here, yes, we care about you guys. Why? Because everybody that's usually that's on the show, or especially on our show, has been through this ringer called CPS, that they will frame you. They will falsify evidence. They will commit perjury. This is the same organization that went before SCOTUS, the highest ruling in the land, SCOTUS panel. The same ones that asked SCOTUS why they couldn't pay actors to testify in court against people to take their kids. What kind of sick fucking organization is this that would hire people to lie in a courtroom and then go before SCOTUS and say, what's so wrong with it? That's fucking disgusting. And how our lawmakers, our senators, our Congress people don't do a fucking thing about it and know it's out here is disgusting. Not a damn thing. Oh, there'll be more revealed, trust me, because we're not going to deal with it just here. There's a lot of things we don't reveal on these shows. Why? Because there's a time and a place and a proper place to hold them accountable. And that time is coming real soon. You may even see the dynamics in this show change because I'll be busy, we'll be busy working on something huge, not just for us, but for this entire nation. And guess what? We got everything we need, and it's been confirmed. It's just a matter of doing the paperwork, and it's almost done. And guess what? When that time comes, let me tell you something, Mr. President, Mr. Musk, you want that audit, I can point you right where to audit and how to audit and what to do, even enough to press criminal charges for treason and sedition. When you have people in this nation that are willing to violate the constitutional rights of others, the reason those are there is to protect us, even psychologically, from this damage that this does. Talk to families. I mean, you've seen the side, I mean, on your side, how many women, especially, that they go after and target the women, not just the men. They push for divorce.
Bad, but the women are just, I mean, there's not a worse pain that a woman can face than having her children torn from her. I truly believe that. And I have met some pretty rough stories for sure.
Yeah, we see videos now. Understand, I can't get on TikTok. I have been permanently banned from TikTok, even trying to get shadow accounts or anything else, something to open up. I can't. They have got me red flagged. I am banned from TikTok permanently. For what? For doing just what we're doing on this show, is exposing corruption and quoting federal case law and trying to educate the public on something. You have federal funding that goes to your department through the Department of Education for your public schools to teach the Constitution, including cursive, which is, calligraphy. It's a form of calligraphy. Properly is the terminology, not just cursive. It's calligraphy, and each one had their own pen. They didn't do it. You have a generation after generation that has no clue on their rights, but they're bombarded in public schools to just, the cop's the good guy. This is the good guy. Don't question anything. Go along with it. What does that do to you psychologically? That's not freedom.
Mm-mm. No, fathers, I have a huge issue with how fathers are treated just in general in our society, let alone the courts. Fathers are not disposable.
No.
And they're not replaceable. Like, I don't understand why we think that our men are disposable. I don't agree with it. I don't understand it. I just, yeah, that bothers me too.
Listen, there was a time in this country we didn't have a whole lot of police, sheriffs, a lot of these other things. And when issues like what usually happens, families dealt with it. Families, the American people, we the people, were able to govern ourselves to even go after people and bring them before the magistrate or before a cop or the police or the judge, whatever it may be, the sheriff, to arrest these people for their crimes and hold people accountable. But the problem is there's no fear left. What are you going to do to me? That's why crime rises the way it does. There's no fear. I'm not telling you to live in fear. I'm telling you to live in fear to do the right thing. There should be a sense of right and wrong and good and evil. But the problem is there's so much gray, and who is defining what is good and evil? There's the other issue. Who gets to define that? I mean, when it comes down to it, because some push the envelope this way, your religious rights, your big churches, everything else, they've got all this side. You've got somebody else that, hey, we want to exercise our freedoms and this and that. Well, this one over here starts complaining, then this one starts complaining. Everybody has a fair shake.
But that's why we have different cultures groups. I know people, like, if you're not hurting anybody, should be nothing stopping you from building your own community, your own culture, what you're comfortable with. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, it shouldn't matter. So,
and the Constitution says, unless I've hurt somebody or damaged somebody's property, I'm supposed to be left alone. That's what the Constitution says. But how many of us have been left alone by our government? The elected officials and appointed officials. All your CPS workers were never even elected. Nobody that serves in Department of Children and Family Services in any state is an elected position.
I don't even think Human Services is an elected position, is it?
No. Appointed.
Yeah.
Now you have to find out that in a lot of states too, magistrates are appointed by their buddies up in the court, the other judges. So the people don't even vote them in. So now your buddy that did everything good and all this other stuff and is all part of the system, something's broke about that. That's one thing that needs to change in a lot of states. We need to be voting these people in, but we need to do a little bit more due diligence in our voting and looking at the person and character and not just taking their words for it, but go talk to some of the people that actually know them from their hometown, the people they worked with. I guarantee you there's not going to be one that everybody's going to agree on. Let's hear both the good and bad.
Mm-hmm. So somebody said something about practicing cursive and drawing to cope. Let's talk about coping, because going through a CPS case is trauma, straight and simple. We like to think of trauma as somebody dying or getting hurt or like soldiers in battle, but there are other ways that you can be traumatized. And PTSD is real. CPTSD is real. And the likelihood that you're going
PTSD is real.
yes. Court litigation abuse is real. CPS abuse is real. So the likelihood of you going through a case with a CPS caseworker and going through court and coming out of it unscathed is like 0 to 9. You're just not going to get out of it unscathed, and I'm sorry. So
and let's diminish the lie too real quick that if you just cooperate with them, it'll go smoothly. That is not their intention whatsoever. Their intention is to take your child because there's no more money. And if they can get them into foster care and terminate your parents' rights, they're going to do it because there's more money in it. It has nothing to do with the best interest of the child, ever.
No. So I am sorry for all of you out there who are hurting and in pain, and I'd like to address some of the things that you could possibly do to kind of help yourselves, because you need to be taking care of yourself. Whoever said that they practice cursive and drawing for coping, that's fantastic. That's fabulous. Art is actually a great outlet for some of that trauma and some of that pain. When my first husband,
fact over lies.
Yeah, when my first husband passed away, I actually took up painting for a little while as an outlet because I didn't have a lot of options. I had little kids. That's a really good one. Physical exercise, always a good way to go. Getting out into nature, connecting with the earth, just putting your bare feet on the ground and grounding yourself is a great way to.
And as a master electrician, I will tell you, yes, this is a real thing. Grounding, putting your feet on the earth. Matter of fact, that goes back to your birth certificate. If your feet hit American soil first before it hits the paper with your feet, as soon as it hits the paper feet, that's a port. Hospitals are considered ports legally. Therefore, you are property of something. If your feet hit American soil, you are a private American citizen. Why? Because I did. And there's a difference between a certificate of live birth and a birth certificate legally. Big difference legally. And yes, Ben's out there. Yes, they are using Title D, 4D, and Title IV funding. There's multiple facets of 4, even beyond just the foster system. Some of those grants and stuff come like to your form of your CAC centers, get federal funding and or grants. A lot of those things that are out there. The other thing I wanted to touch on was targeted patent. Yes, as far as, owing arrears and everything else, child support is very one-sided, but it's also found that child support was unconstitutional because it was a separation of powers. Whether you guys know this or not, in 90% of the states, pretty much all of them, and you can do your own research, that when child support is gone through the state, they actually get money from Social Security for that. And they're actually double dipping, is what the term is. But they get you on child support. That's part of that money under administrative fees is not just for the child support division, a private entity or business. It actually goes into your judges and magistrates in your county, goes into their retirement fund. So they have a financial incentive to rule and break up your family and get you to the point of paying child support and having the state involved. Now you say, well, how do I do this different? If you don't, if you have a agreeable divorce, you can put in your divorce decree that you agree to something outside CPS, that you want to do it privately and not publicly. When the judge signs that divorce decree, you also now have a contract that child support cannot interfere with because it's a private contract. The state cannot interfere with private contracts. They can't bulldoze over you. There's a lot of legal loopholes with that stuff. So, but like I said, if you know how to pick your battles and you know the information and you know where the case law is and you fight in the right court, you will get everything that you have paid in and back because of those particular things. Now there's incentive. There's a lot of stuff going on with this, the DOGE program of revealing this corruption. You guys have already seen a lot of it. I mean, I know Sharon and I have talked about quite a bit that's been uncovered and how they're letting people go on half the stuff that they're doing. And, some of the, there's an entity looking to take over our country, people. And it's embedded deep and it goes through their policies and procedures. Why? Why do I say that? Because if it's unconstitutional, it's not supposed to be here. It's not even supposed to be a way of thinking. The fact that we have people launching psychological warfare against the American family to break up homes so they can get a paycheck because they don't believe this and that. If there's no crime, you should stay out of it. Other than that, you're supposed to be a service that is voluntary and optional. It's like but once again, both public and private. Officers should say, hey, there's a criminal thing. Maybe it's not criminal, but it looks like you could use some help. Here's some services that are possible but that's not what happens. They come beating on your door, and the first thing they do is come in your house with no warrant, no court order, no extenuating circumstances. And what happens? That's a Fourth Amendment violation. Anything after that falls under fruit from a poisonous tree. You just got to file federally and your whole case goes away. It doesn't matter if it's 4 years old, 5 years old, anything. File in federal court under the proper jurisdiction. Your court didn't have jurisdiction if you had a constitutional right issue. And here's the key. Every judge and magistrate had the legal paperwork right in front of them proving that there was a Fourth Amendment violation. You entered the home, didn't you? Yeah. Where's your court order, warrant? Anyway, I don't see any of that before me.
Mm-hmm.
That's where your judges and magistrates all need to go to jail because it's their duty and sworn oath to even run to the aid if the Constitution is in question or failing. It's their job. But what happens if that's the first thing? They lose jurisdiction. There's no more money to be made. Why do you think they drag it out in the state courts so long? Ooh.
They want all your money.
But what does it do to you psychologically?
Oh,
it wears you down. It beats you.
Oh, yeah.
Breaks a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people.
I should say, not everybody has broken from it, but yes. It's quite a simple tactic if you really think about it. If you remove the father from the home, it weakens the home. I don't care who you are or what your opinion is about men. If you remove the father, the main and primary protector from the home, you're going to weaken the home. That leaves mama and the babies. If you remove mama from the home because she got to work or whatever, that leaves the babies. They've done it through the school system. Babies go to school. They have control of the babies. If they can remove mom and dad and steal the babies and put them into a program, now they have full control of the babies.
Now I'm gonna stir the pot. Now let's add to this.
And
they have control of your food.
Well,
now mom and dad's working, and the only thing you get at the grocery store is stuff that's actually destroying your kids and actually doing that. Fluoride is meant to dumb you down. But how widely is fluoride given?
But the point is that it gives them control and your society falls. And then whoever is controlling it has control of the society. I mean, you've seen it many times over in history. I mean, if you can raise the next generation, you've got the next generation, right? That's why families used to be so powerful.
Well, they tried it. They've been doing it. But here's the issue.
Family came before any form of government. Period.
But the thing they got to deal with now is Gen X. the one that didn't want to be poked, the one that didn't want to be played with. Just leave us alone and let us be. You came after our kids. You came after our grandkids. And now it's game on, because now you're about ready to play the biggest game of fuck around and find out. And let me tell you, we just used to hurt feelings for fun. That's why we are the way we had your mama jokes. We had this, nothing was off limits. But we understood where it was, and it made us a little different. Some of you, you're around, oh my God, that's bullying, that's this, it's that. No, it makes for what the real world's going to throw at you. There's your problem. We're not preparing our kids to live in a world without us. They'll always need their mama. They'll always need their dad.
I hope not, because then they wouldn't be very strong people on their own.
We're not, and now we've confused the whole thing between, we've been attacked psychologically too with gender dysphoria of we don't know what we are and this and that. And then you go after the children of saying, oh, well, they need to have this and they need to have surgeries and castrate them. I mean, after even what happened to Elon Musk's family, where they didn't realize what was going on. It was chemical castration. Guys, our kids, I've raised 3 kids up to the age of 18. They're all adults now. My kids have always wanted to be a princess, an astronaut, a fireman, this and that, even to the point of when they were younger, it's very common for little girls to dress like their daddies and in their daddy's shoes, or boys to get in their mama's shoes. And this is part of natural thing of figuring out where they're at. But when you look at that, I think I'm a woman, and somebody actually believes that out of a 3 or a 4-year-old, I really question.
That's actually a very natural and healthy developmental stage for them, because they're trying to identify with their opposite parent, and that's actually very much okay, and you need to let them do that.
Well,
but that doesn't make them something that they're not.
No. It's very normal, but we're not taught that. All of a sudden somebody says, well, they said they want to do this. I'm going to encourage that at 3 and 5, where people say, I'm not going to raise my child. I'm going to kind of be the friend to them, and I'm going to guide them. Let me tell you something. It never works. That child gets out into society, and this world chews them up. And that's where you get your serial killers, your people that shoot stuff up, and all these other things, because the real world hit them so damn hard because they were so unprepared for it. When the facts and the truths came to light of the world they had to live in, they could not mentally take it, because their parents did not prepare them mentally for what is outside the home and out there in this nasty ass world, because it's evil, it's hateful, it's destructive. And that's the harsh reality. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of seeing the transition, even a lot of women that go to work, I hate this. 90% of women that are in jobs hate being in their jobs.
Josephine, if she worked for CPS, how was she a fake CPS worker? I'm confused. She wasn't a certified CPS worker.
What she's saying is you have to be licensed in some states to be a certified thing. And in hers, the person that showed up, this is a common issue with people that work for CPS, DSS, DCS, this and that, not to have the proper documentation. Go figure, they don't have it even in court 90% of the time, or it's fabricated shit. I mean, I've had them keep people out of the courtroom. Just in our case, they were telling the GALs, don't bring people into the courtroom, this and that. You have a right to face your accuser. You have a right to do this, but you have somebody telling you to keep evidence out. You've got a judge that gives an order that says no cell phones in the building whatsoever, so you can't even bring evidence in because it's on your cell phone. Yeah. I mean, that's called due process violation, people. That's unconstitutional. And all those judges and magistrates, that's why I put out earlier, if you've had an audit, a First Amendment audit by somebody that goes around and does these things on YouTube, TikTok, if that's happened and that's a courthouse, you have a huge cost. Every case that they've heard, because there's a constitutional rights violation, that meant media couldn't come in, this couldn't come in, or even evidence come in. That's a constitutional rights violation, and every case that courthouse would have to hear would have to be overturned.
And I'm sorry, GALs are a joke. That should be a decision that parents get to make. I was not happy about that one at all. How does a stranger get to make decisions for what is best for your child? That makes zero sense in my mind.
They don't. Here's the thing I say as a parent. What gives you the right to come in? Were you here when this kid was sick with a fever? Did you go through the colic? Did you go through, the jaundice in the hospital, being in the hospital because the baby was preemie, and the hours you were there, and this and that? Were you up late at night with fevers? Were you there cuddling them with nightmares and this and that? No. Well, fuck you, because the government has not had a child.
No. I can guarantee you, no.
And they have zero, look at this, you have zero knowledge or training or education on neurodivergency whatsoever.
They are not equipped to deal with special needs children whatsoever.
No.
They don't know the first thing. They don't know, and there's so much diversity within neurodivergence. I mean, the spectrum is all over the place, and every child is so completely different. You cannot judge one child off of your experience with the last one. You just can't, because they're a completely different person.
No, it's something completely different. And that's one thing that we're that is kind of like the point is, how do you know? And there's the whole thing. Well, we want in your home. Fuck you. Constitution says otherwise. No, you don't need in my home. No, you ain't got no business with my home. And this is where they're going. They want control of you in the workplace, in the school place, out in public, and even in your own fucking house. But the Constitution prevents it, but nobody's standing up for it. Why? Because sheriffs are told something different by the states.
Right.
And every state is in violation of a duly elected constitutional sheriff to do the duties. And if a sheriff realized their power when these people from the state do the shit they do, saying you can't this or interfere like what they're doing, sheriff, you got every right to go right down to your state's capital and throw them in handcuffs and prosecute them. Matter of fact, it's your duty for the people of your county, not to lay in bed with the state or anything else. Your responsibility is that county. I don't think you know, right? It's to protect them against the constitutional invaders.
Yeah.
And to protect people and
Josephine,
to investigate crimes.
That has to be so frustrating. I had arguably pretty with our caseworker, I was arguably as well educated, if not more well educated, because of my experience than the caseworker that we had. And they just completely overlooked all of my education and all of my experience because I was the mom in the case, and they decided that I was an issue.
Yeah.
And like they don't. And that's very frustrating for me because, I've spent all of my children's lives not only continuing my education, but, learning them, and the fact that they can just turn around and so easily dismiss that education and that experience is just really infuriating because, we spend all of our time with our kids, right? We know our kids.
And here is the documented fate of that gallant 50.
Sorry about that, guys. Something in the background there.
So that can be very frustrating, especially if your caseworker is not educated, has no experience with children that may or may not be special needs, doesn't know the first thing about what they're talking about usually. I mean, it's really frustrating to be in that position and just be completely dismissed and disregarded because they've decided that you are either guilty by association, or they need to assess your ability to parent, even though you've been parenting the whole time and it's not been an issue, like, and I mean, like, it's very, very frustrating to be in that situation for sure.
Well, guys, either way, with anything that you do with CPS, you're going to have to deal with some mental health issues because they're going to give them to you. But please, please hear us out. Don't give up. Don't give up on your kids. There's no statute of limitation on constitutional rights violation. Even if they've got your kids and adopt them out, you can still have the hope of getting them back by filing in federal court that the very first thing they did was violate your rights, which terminates everything they've done. You got to know how to fight. Don't give up. There's a lot of information out there. Watch out for scams. Watch out for people doing things. There's petitions that are going around that some of them are actually, if you really read them, and it's actually saying that if CPS is ever convicted of doing anything, that you agree not to sue them. And they're selling this under parents' rights, that you're agreeing with CPS and what they're doing. So be very, very, very careful. Sharon, I want to thank you again for joining us on the show. We'll see you here in a couple of weeks, and we'll see if we can have a special guest, see what we can come up with. We're working on that diligently to assist the show and help things grow. Thanks again, Sharon, and we'll see you next time.
Night.
Guys, I can tell you this much. I've been kicked off TikTok. I've been chastised. I've been, people that won't listen. I've dealt with mass corruptions on many different levels. The amount of stress and everything when it comes to your mental health and why it's so important is why. Because I had to have a pacemaker defibrillator put in because I have congestive heart failure. And I had it during the course of my CPS thing. And because of the great amount of stress they put you through, actually attempted to kill me. To this point that they had to put a device in me. It was so bad. When it comes to my case, yes, I will be seeking attempted murder charges because it does qualify under the federal statute. Guys, we want to share as much as we can. Tonight we shared with you some tricks that CPS was going, some mental health. We shared with you some case law showing that you do have constitutionally protected parental rights with current case law that you can use even in your case when they don't want to. Make sure you quote Chevron that it's been overturned and that they must follow case law. You have to make sure that that's made a point, and when they realize you understand, you're going to hold them to case law and it's no more of this bullshit. Well, then you got something to stand on and make sure you're putting that on all your documentation. Guys, learn how to fight. And I'm going to leave you guys tonight with a video to close things out. It deals with our American history and what our founding fathers and what it paid, what it took, and the information that's out there, maybe a little bit more, as we'll say, and I love it. Here's the rest of the story.
6. Carter Braxton of Virginia, wealthy planter, trader, saw his ships swept from the seas. To pay his debts, he lost his home and all of his properties and died in rags. Thomas Lynch Jr., who signed that pledge, was a third-generation rice grower, aristocrat, large plantation owner. After he signed, his health failed. His wife and he set out for France to regain his failing health. Their ship never got to France, was never heard from again. Thomas McKean of Delaware was so harassed by the enemy that he was forced to move his family 5 times in 5 months. He served in Congress without pay, his family in poverty and in hiding. Vandals looted the properties of Ellery and Clymer and Hall and Gwinnett and Walton and Hayward and Rutledge and Middleton. Thomas Nelson Jr. of Virginia raised $2 million on his own signature to provision our allies, the French fleet. After the war, he personally paid back the loans, wiped out his entire estate, and he was never reimbursed by his government. In the final battle for Yorktown, he, Nelson, urged General Washington to fire on his, Nelson's, own home, which was occupied by Cornwallis. It was destroyed, Thomas Nelson Jr. had pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. The Hessians seized the home of Francis Hopkinson of New Jersey. Francis Lewis had his home and everything destroyed, his wife imprisoned. She died within a few months. Richard Stockton, who signed that declaration, was captured, mistreated, his health broken to the extent that he died at 51. His estate was pillaged. Thomas Hayward Jr. was captured when Charleston fell. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside while she was dying. Their 13 children fled in all directions for their lives. His fields and grist mill were laid waste. For more than a year he lived in forests and caves and returned home after the war to find his wife dead, his children gone, his properties gone, and he died a few weeks later of exhaustion and a broken heart. Lewis Morris saw his land destroyed, his family scattered. Philip Livingston died within a few months from the hardships of the war. John Hancock, history remembers best due to a quirk of fate rather than anything he stood for. That great sweeping signature attesting to his vanity towers over the others. One of the wealthiest men in New England. And yet he stood outside Boston one terrible night of the war. And he said, "Burn Boston, though it makes John Hancock a beggar, if the public good requires it." So he too lived up to the pledge. Of the 56, few were long to survive. 5 were captured by the British and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes from Rhode Island to Charleston sacked, looted, occupied by the enemy, or burned. 2 lost their sons in the army. 1 had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 died in the war from its hardships or from its more merciful bullets. I don't know what impression you had of the men who met that summer in Philadelphia. But I think it's important that we remember this about them. They were not poor men. They were not wild-eyed pirates. These were men of means. They were rich men, most of them, and had enjoyed much ease and luxury in their personal living. Not hungry men, certainly not terrorists, not irresponsible malcontents, not fanatical incendiaries. These men were prosperous men, wealthy landowners. They were substantially secure in their prosperity. They had everything to lose. But they considered liberty, and this is as much as I shall say of it. They had learned that liberty is so much more important than security, that they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And they fulfilled their pledge. They paid the price, and freedom was born.
Guys, I want to thank you again for joining us. Check us out. Don't forget to hit the like and follow on there, and catch us next week where we will be talking about some more case law. Hopefully we'll have some really good guests for you next week, and maybe some more breaking edge news. Guys, don't forget to get the word out and pay attention, because things are coming, and you guys are going to hear a lot of things right here exclusively on this channel when things start to happen. And guys, don't miss it, because you're going to love every bit of what we're going to share. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Running for CPS like a lion on the prowl. Take back our kids, bring them home now. Constitution, strong blood won't lie. No more corruption, let freedom fly. Loud and on fire, won't back down. Keeping the faith here in this town. Apple pie dreams under a southern sky. American man with a fierce battle cry. Stand up, fight for justice, we demand. Gunning for CPS off our land. For family truth with a strong hand. Time to rise, take a stand. Corruption falls like we stay, no more broken past. Faith and hope, never too far. Return our kids, make them the stars. Fierce in heart and steady in soul, families united make the broken whole. Justice for all, America strong. Sing this anthem loud, sing our song. Stand up, fight for justice, we demand. Gunning for CPS off our land. For family truth with a strong hand. Time to rise, take a stand. Corruption falls like shattered glass. Together we stay, no more broken past. Faith and hope, never too far. Return our kids, make them the stars. Corruption falls like shattered glass. Together we stay, no more broken past. Faith and hope, never too far. Return our kids, make them the stars. Stand up, fight for justice, we demand. Gunning for CPS off our land. For family truth with a strong hand. Time to rise, take a stand.